Hello, this is Vitualis, the chess noob, learning and having fun with chess. Today I played another game where the path to victory was paved by piece sacrifice. In the last video, I spoke about a game where a strategy of aggressive and bombastic play resulted in a beautiful win. In this second video of the series, I again choose a line to sacrifice pieces considered objectively bad by Stockfish, but which again led to a good result. In the beginner-intermediate space, it's perhaps useful to consider that the difference between a blunder and a gambit is simply one of choice and perspective. Please enjoy! Let's have a quick look at the review, chess.com's algorithm, and I suppose neither of us played particularly accurately. You know, we had a sort of mix of some good moves, great moves even, but inaccuracies and also a mix of blunders. And you can see in the chart, you know, there's a few red dots, which are the blunders, goes up and down. The bot reckoned it was a wild, chaotic game, and I suppose that was. And I suppose the wildness here related to some of the very, very aggressive, probably unsound and unbalanced attacks I made, but as you can see, I certainly came out ahead. Let's have a look now at the analysis. All right, so I had the white pieces, e4, e5, knight c3, so beginning of the Vienna game. Interesting, opponent responds with sort of the d6 system, which is okay, which is fine. Here, I usually will now play bishop c4, and sort of the following ideas from this point is to play d3, which then opens up that diagonal, which allows for f4, and then putting the knight behind the pawns. So that's the general idea, and then castle. Opponent plays knight f3, which is fine, so d3, h6, which is interesting and potentially a good move. So basically prevents the bishop from going there and pinning the knight to the queen, though I wasn't really planning on making that move anyway. So now f4. So I think Stockfish reckons actually playing the knight is better according to it. It's probably more sound. However, it's not really like playing the Vienna then. I like putting the knight behind the pawns. Opponent now captures, and that's often quite good for me because that means now that that F file is potentially open. So now the knight, yes, can just capture the bishop first, and now the knight, and now we can short castle, and the rook then ends up controlling the F file. So there we go. An opponent fianchettos their bishop, and according to Stockfish, that was a very good move. So it basically does add an extra defense. So the bishop comes out here, and then they short castle. There's one less defender, potentially, of their king. Here, I play d4. An opponent now short castles. I sort of push another pawn, e5. So apparently that wasn't the best move. Putting the queen on d2, which, yep, makes sense because then allows for a direct attack on that pawn. Yep, that would have made more sense. They capture. Pawn captures pawn. I capture back. And now the queens look at each other and the opponent plays their knight to the side. So with a threat on the bishop. And here I thought for quite a while. So I didn't want to capture because, you know, then they get to control the D file. I actually wanted them to capture me, but it didn't look like they were going to play that game. So I had some ideas. What am I going to do? So obviously by capturing, that places the king in check. And I have to admit now, I simply made a mistake here. I thought I could do that. They would capture potentially, and then I would sort of capture queen captures queen. I simply basically didn't forgot that the knight could go backwards. But nonetheless, I thought, yeah, let's just do this. Let's just do this. I was pretty sure I didn't actually have enough attackers, but I thought this might just blow up the position and I might end up ahead, even though I thought that this was a very risky sort of move. So that's what I did. So effectively, you know, Stockfish immediately reckoned it was a blunder, you know, almost -6. But I took this, I framed this as a gambit. I'm going to gambit that bishop and see what the opponent does to basically break open the defense of their king. So they captured back with the king, which was interesting. And here I decided to gambit basically a second piece with check. And again, I thought, if they're not careful here, that would come potentially with a discovered check, and maybe I could capture the queen. Now, of course, that doesn't work because they could just block with either of those pieces, but then I win back a piece. So that's what I did. Look at that. They make a blunder back, but they still got the advantage. Now capture that pawn. Now with check, and of course now sort of potentially threatening that rook as well. So aggressive, bombastic play. And here I sort of expected they would probably block with one of those two pieces, and they don't. They retreat the queen, the king. So they retreat the king, and that's now mine. Excellent. And so now I'm ahead. So with a series of just really quite mad maneuvers, I've managed to come out a bit ahead. Now I had to think about, now what am I going to do about this? Okay, what am I going to do about this? Because otherwise, there's two attackers on that pawn. So I thought, let's block. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So again, this the Stockfish reckons that was a blunder, but I wasn't so sure it was a blunder because the most natural thing would be to capture, and that would capture back with check. So they captured the pawn, which was I think to be expected, and here push forward again, another check. What are you going to do? Okay, move the king out of the way, which was fine, Here, I decided to move the queen to e2. And again, that was apparently not a good move. I did consider moving the queen to f3 because, that potentially, threatens queen to f7. Very, very powerful, part of infiltration. However, I suppose I wasn't sure that that was going to work. And so here, I thought this might be better because if they try to capture, oops, not that way, what I'm doing. If they try to capture, I would capture back with check, and then I would capture back. So basically giving that knight on e7 a bit of a lifeline. Here, apparently that that was moved, but I didn't see that in the game. I thought here should be fine. And so the diagonal away from that knight, adjacent to that knight means another knight move cannot attack the queen. The opponent plays another very good move, a rook move, but I thought this was probably okay for me. And here, so in sort of the complexity of the position, the opponent makes another blunder. I can just straight up now capture the knight, and that's what I did. They can capture that back, but nothing stopped me from capturing. And this series of transformations now gives me a winning endgame because it's rook and two bishops versus queen and rook. I should be winning. I should be winning. And you can see Stockfish agrees, +7, almost +7.5. And so the remainder of these moves is really just converting. So, yep, captures with check. Here, bring the other rook into the game. So apparently that was a little bit better, but, not really that different, I think, with check. But the king can just go into the corner, no worries. Yep, that makes sense, defend, and that also potentially defends that bishop as well, because otherwise a fork will ensue. Nonetheless, I give the king a check anyway. They block, another check, which is fine. Now king back to that position, and now queen to this position, potentially a check with a fork. But they saw it, which is very good. However, I give a check again, forcing the queen up, and now forcing the opponent to move their bishop, but they moved it to the wrong place because now another fork with check captures, and now it's really all over because now the opponent has lost a piece. They go there, check. Bring the rook up, last gasp, but, any of these squares would now be checkmate. And so, good game, GG. One of the ideas out of the Vienna game when the f-pawn is captured and the opponent has castled kingside is to take advantage of the semi-open f-file. That is, targeting the opponent's weak f-pawn and launching an all-out assault on the king. If you follow Stockfish's evaluation, the barrage of attacks against the opponent's king was objectively bad, but the assertiveness and audacity of the attack resulted in inaccurate play by the opponent, eventually giving me a winning advantage in the endgame. I hope you found this video interesting, and thanks for watching.